Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm Gene Barr, your host for this week's show. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about all things roads, Pennsylvania Turnpike and roads throughout the Commonwealth, and we'll start that right after this.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for joining us. Our first guest today is Craig Shuey. Craig is the Chief Operating Officer of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. Craig, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Gene. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. People ride the road, see the road. Give us quickly a history of the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Sure. I grew up with the interstate system. I suspect most of the time you did as well. Mm-hmm. But before that, the roads were not the type that we're seeing now. They are broken up. There were lots of hills, difficult to climb through the Allegheny Mountains. And in the 30s, somebody said, why don't we build a road that gets us away from all of that? And it was the first in the country to be attempted. And it partially came because the Depression era building needs at the time had an opportunity to do stuff like that. And in 1940, after 2 years of building, 163 brand new miles of roadway was there from Carlisle to Irwin, Pennsylvania.
Okay, that was the first segment.
First segment, crossing the Allegheny Mountains, 7 tunnels. There's only a few left.
Right.
Several have been bypassed. 1 tube each in those tunnels, so you went from 4 lanes to 2 lanes at each tunnel. But it was a miracle at the time, and people lined up at the opening night to be the first people to ride on it. A penny a mile across the whole system.
A penny a mile, a little bit more now.
A little bit more, but
just a little bit
inflation
more.
Adjusted, actually pretty close.
Correct.
But it was a marvel, and I think it would have expanded faster had World War II not interrupted it. Okay. But it then became a long-term source of troop movements and equipment movements across Pennsylvania to facilitate the war movement at the time.
Which leads to another question that I heard before, which I think is true, but you can tell us that some sections of the highway were built, I believe, under Eisenhower, flattened enough that they could be used as runways.
That's never been confirmed, but it's one of those urban legends out there that somebody believed you needed the ability to be able to land a bomber on some of those runway, on some of those sections. And I would venture that right now you could land a pretty big plane out in Newville area, in the Cumberland County part of the system.
You probably could.
There have been planes that have landed on the Turnpike, but not intentionally.
Good point. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Turnpike. So the critical issue is that you guys are under fairly significant financial distress because of decisions and actions that took place pretty much about 20 years ago. You guys were required to send money for mass transit, and then there was supposed to be some other things that were done, and one of which, most critically, never came to pass. Give us a little more information about what happened and how that's impacting the Turnpike.
Sure. Just like we are right now. What is old is new again. There's a transit funding shortfall. In 2004, 5, 6, that was happening here along with a highway funding need. Lots of debate in Harrisburg. The result of that debate was Act 44 of 2007, which gave the Pennsylvania Turnpike the authority to toll Interstate 80, providing at what would have been about $1 billion a year and growing from 2010 onward. That required federal approval. There were 2 attempts at that under both the Bush administration and the Obama administrations. Both were rejected. And at that point in time, the I-80 portion of Act 44 went away. There was still a commitment requirement for the commission to pay $450 million a year. That would have gone on till 2057. Okay. But Act 89 of 2013 put a pin in that in 2022. And that was the last year we made that big payment. Okay. However, we amassed about $8 billion worth of debt. Right, which is what you have right now. Which is what about $8 billion. Well, we have $16 billion, but half of it is for rebuilding the road. And as you would imagine, it's an animal in and of itself to maintain. But that burden, that's where the toll increases are coming from, because that was heavily debt-financed, interest-forward debt, because we didn't have the revenues coming in from I-80. So we were managing under that scenario for a number of years with the 450 in play. We're now paying $50 million a year to support multimodal needs in the Commonwealth. We're supporting the debt at about $600 million a year out of the resources that we come. Over half of our resources are going for debt service.
So important for people to understand the financial circumstances you're in when they think about tolling, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about some of the other things that are happening at the Turnpike, and we'll do that right after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My guest is Craig Shuey. Craig is Chief Operating Officer of the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Craig, you guys are getting ready to do some pretty interesting new things, and the concept is called open road tolling. So tell us what that means. I know people are going to be seeing, we've already seen changes, no longer have manned booths, et cetera. So tell us what's going on with open road tolling.
Open road tolling is the next evolution for tolling. It is safer. It's faster, it's better for the environment, it's seamless. It allows tolling to be applied in places where it's difficult to do a traditional toll plaza. For us, it was a decision that was difficult in the sense that it required massive change to the way we operate. Even though many toll roads who were born or built in the early 2000s were built exactly as we are now, we had to reconfigure our entire system, including our toll schedule, in order to do it. So we've taken a lot of years to build up to it. We did a AET conversion during the 2020.
AET meaning?
All electronic tolling. That was the first evolution of this program, where we were using the existing lanes to do the license plate tolling and the Easy Pass. And now, as you see east of Reading and up the northeastern extension, the gantries are active.
These are the devices that go over the highway, so people know and probably wondering what the heck's going on.
Yeah, it looks like a complex sign structure for the most part. There's a Miller building beside it that provides all the access to the equipment and things.
Got it.
But it's there to capture tolls. So it grabs video, it grabs Easy Pass transactions, it measures the number of axles and the height of the vehicles to give us a way to toll accurately the people using the system. But like I said, it evolved for us through this multi-phase approach because of the fact that we were 85 years old. We have all these toll plazas that were built to a cash structure. And it's exciting for us because it's going to allow us to do things that we've never been able to do.
Yeah.
We're going to add interchanges in places that everybody can use. When we added Easy Pass interchanges in the east, Malvern area in Chester County, big success. A lot of commercial development around the area. Obviously eased congestion in the area, but it was Easy Pass only because that was the only way to capture that operation. Nobody followed that rule. So we had violations after violations going out to people who were doing the wrong thing, thinking that GPS was sending them the right way.
Right. Open
road tolling gives us this flexibility all over. And it allows tolls to be more ubiquitous. It allows tolls to be easier to pay. And it allows frictionless ways for us to build out new infrastructure.
And there's all kinds of, which have been around for a while, conspiracy theories about what these gantries are going to do and not do, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us what they're not going to do.
So the toll system is used for tolling.
Right.
If law enforcement sends us a subpoena for some reason, we'll give them the information. We don't use it for speeding control. We don't track your movements and report to the general public. There are protections. In fact, the statute that allowed Easy Pass had some of those protections in it. You may see law enforcement's now beginning to use license plate reader technology, same as we use for tolling, for a variety of enforcements. that could go anywhere. That can be added to sign structures. That could be added to toll gantries. It's not part of the tolling system.
Now, we've got just a brief time left, so real quick, you guys are spending $8 billion in construction over the next 10 years. There'll be demolition of the existing toll booths. There'll be what you've called reduced acreage, more environmentally friendly. All of this you guys are doing. And so, as you note, the Turnpike is going to look different in a couple of years.
So that along with that $8 billion is not just the toll. That's obviously a lot of regular construction going on.
Correct.
But these resets. In fact, I'm most excited about a sleepy little interchange called Mahoning Valley up on the northeastern extension, which is going to have, as a part of its new configuration, a roundabout. And this was to allow. This is entering and exiting traffic. We use the roundabout to allow for access to an existing park and ride and allow people to get on and off the roadway safely, park their cars, and re-enter. But again, lots of new configurations, lots of ways to get into for commercial applications and freight. We may be able to better assist in the access to some of those major warehousing facilities that we have. So those things are the future of commerce and the future of the transportation space, and we're ready for that under ORT.
How many people are using E-ZPass now?
There's 2.5 million accounts in Pennsylvania. 86% of our transactions across the whole system, and there's 500,000 a day are E-ZPass.
How much do you guys lose on toll evasion, and how do you go back and capture?
Yeah, it's about 7% of our revenue that is toll by plate that's not paid. We get about 50% back from those who are invoiced for tolling. But we're using a variety of methods to collect that. We do have collection agencies, and sometimes they'll knock on your door to look for those payments. If you have more than $250 in unpaid tolls, we can suspend your registration through a partnership with PennDOT. That's a pretty serious impact.
Serious.
If you drive with a suspended registration,
that's a big deal.
You can get a license plate or a driver's license suspension as well. So we have that. We do civil activities through the courts, and we're sending some to commercial.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being on. Hopefully we'll have you back on. We can catch up and continue to see how this evolution goes. Craig, thanks for being with us.
Love to be here.
We'll be back in a moment with our next guest.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, visit crossstate.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're here with Bob Latham. Bob is the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. These are the folks who are out there building and rebuilding your roads and highways. So, Bob, thanks for being with us.
Gene, always great to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So we had Craig Shuey. Craig, of course, was with the Turnpike Commission. And curious, as was talking to Craig, what's the tie-in? How does your organization work with the Turnpike?
Well, our history goes back to the beginning of the Turnpike. In fact, my predecessor, 4 or 5 times removed, Earl O'Brien, worked with the then fledgling commission to kind of lay out the entire route from Carlisle to Irwin. So that's how far we go back. Members of our association built the original Turnpike, and we continue to work on it to this day. The folks that I represent are doing the gantries that you talked about. They're doing the major reconstruction that people drive through as well.
Good, good. So you've been on the show quite a bit, and we've talked a lot about what the needs are and what the funding options are and how, and obviously, as we always do, there's not enough money for all the things we do. There was a major piece of federal legislation that passed, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and a lot of money came into the states. But you had pointed out, which I wasn't completely aware of, that, yeah, it's a good chunk of money, but it's going into a relatively small number of projects. Correct?
One of the things that we're seeing now, Gene, you talk about the 85. We talk about the 85-year history of the Turnpike. Well, there's also about the 70-year history of the interstate highway system. The interstate highway system was actually the Turnpike was sort of the prototype, but we have 1,900 miles of interstate highway in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It was built largely with federal dollars, and now it has to be rebuilt largely with state dollars. There is federal involvement there.
And doesn't Pennsylvania, I'm sorry, also have more state roads than New York and New England combined?
Thanks, you've been paying attention.
See, I told you I'd listen.
Rolls off of our tongue very easily. But so other states will have county systems of government. Pennsylvania has a state and municipal. So you're right. We have all these rural roads and rural bridges that have to be maintained by PennDOT. And when we have to spend large sums of money to rebuild the interstate system, which we have to do.
Sure, because there's a match system required, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, for example, I-95 in the Philadelphia area, massive projects, putting a park over top of I-95, rebuilding that whole stretch there, the Parkway east and west in Pittsburgh, Interstate 83, 81 here in central Pennsylvania, just to name a couple.
Right.
Those are very costly projects. It takes money. We have to match the federal money for that, and then it takes money away from the ability to do rural roads and bridges, which are the backbone of our agriculture community and many of our manufacturing areas as well.
So I guess you say there's a significant backlog to fix some of these other roads that aren't what we would call the major roads, either the interstates or major intersections of big roads, right?
Exactly. So as we get into transportation policy discussions, of course, you were leading the chamber when we passed Act 89, which was a comprehensive transportation funding bill. It included public transit, ports, airports, highways, et cetera. Right now, the topic that we're hearing is mainly centered around public transit, particularly in the southeast, and then on the highway side, some of these major projects. So what's getting lost is funding for these rural roads and bridges.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to see that maybe some of that will go hand in hand with whatever is done for SEPTA.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back and continue talking about how we're working on our roads and what we're needing to do to get that moving forward. We'll do that here in a few moments.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm here with Bob Latham. Bob is the Executive Vice President for Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. And before we broke, we were talking a bit about some of these major projects and how very, very expensive, the interstates, the other major highways. So, but not all projects are major. There's roads, 2-lane roads, some smaller 4-lane roads. So how do we address the problems that we know we're having on some of these smaller roads?
Well, we have a short-term problem and a long-term problem. So short-term, I think, is what we can deal with now. Going back, Gene, you'll recall that over the years, money that people are paying in gas taxes and highway users fees were siphoned off to augment the budget of the state police. That's starting to come down. We've made a lot of progress there, while at the same time maintaining funding for the state police. We want to make sure that they are well funded, but just finding another way to do it. In the budget proposals that are going back and forth between the House and the Senate, we have seen a continued reduction in that money going from the highway fund over to the state police. We can use that money as a source to float some short-term bonds, maybe about $600 million. And that would allow for additional funding and paving for in rural areas, small bridge work. You know, we talk about Pennsylvania has 25,000 bridges on its state system. Well, a lot of them are just 20 to 30 feet long, and they're very small in rural areas. But again, if you take a 20 or 30 foot long bridge off of out of a rural area, then you've got to drive miles around to get around the detour. So it's very, very important to those communities. And so that short-term bonding program could fix a lot of those roads.
Now, there's some organizations, I think some engineering organizations that rate roads and bridges within states. How do we rank based on some of those rankings?
Well, as far as the number of structurally deficient bridges,
Yes.
we're number 2.
Okay.
But we have made a tremendous progress. I need to point that out.
Okay.
We're number 2 in the numbers because we have more than anybody else. We reduced, with using the Act 89 money, I mean, we really did invest that well. We went from 6,000 deficient bridges to 3,000. That's a 50% reduction. So we've done well with that. But, you know, as bridges continue to get older, they need to be fixed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so anyway, making that a priority, I think, is be a good thing.
So the other thing people, and we've talked about this before, is that Pennsylvania has a real issue because of what we call the freeze-thaw problem. That is, we're kind of right on a line during the wintertime, and that's why people see these potholes. So how late can your guys work into the year? Here we are in November. How late can they work into the year fixing these, and what's involved in that?
Well, interestingly enough, it really is region to region. I mean, you know, we're talking now that next week Erie might see its first lake effect snow.
Okay.
Whereas in the southeast,
that's late this year.
While as in the southeast, they could be paving up a storm. So, we deal with that. Particularly structure work can be done throughout the winter. Obviously, asphalt is temperature dependent, so asphalt pavement is temperature dependent, so that has to be taken into account. Winter shutdown.
So there is some work that goes on, but I guess your
definitely.
guys don't clearly do as much in the winter because it's not conducive to that, correct?
Well, exactly. Particularly if there's snow or ice or something
Yes.
like that on the ground, you can't.
Yeah,
work
exactly. Makes it kind of tough. So I want to talk about an issue quickly because we just have brief time left about in the next 2 minutes that we. Worker safety. You guys have made a major effort, and I'm curious because there have been legislation passed in which you guys had, the work zone cameras and unmanned vehicles, I think, and you guys strongly supported those. Has that had a positive impact in terms of worker safety here in Pennsylvania?
Oh, absolutely. And not just worker safety, which is to us is vitally important, of course, but motorist safety as well. It's important to point out that most accidents or injuries in work zones due to speeding or reckless driving are on motorists themselves, not the workers. So it was important to point out that this isn't just a highway worker issue. It's a motorist safety issue as well. But we've seen, to answer your question, we've seen a great reduction in speeds. We're very pleased with how that's working. Folks are slowing down when they get into work zones, particularly when they recognize that there's going to be a speed camera there. You still get a warning on your first offense, but then you will get a fine after that. Some of the major projects we've seen around the state and on the Turnpike is using this effectively as well.
Yeah, that's good. So you have seen.
We've seen reduction
sure
in fatalities. I mean, we've still had some tragic injuries and so forth, but we've seen it work very well.
Good. Well, that's great. I'm glad you guys pushed for that, and I'm sure your workers have too. Bob, thanks for being with us. Look forward to having you back on the show. Thanks for being with us on this week's Pennsylvania Newsmakers. Look forward to seeing you again next week.